hate all Americans as collective punishment? Should we hate all Americans as collective punishment? Should we just drop the hate that's harmful to ourselves? It would seem at the moment, for much of the world, certainly for Europe, and Canada and Mexico, that Americans, all Americans, have got the wrath of the hatred of a lot of the world. And of course, there's the debate of, should we hate all Americans? And thinking back to the 80s of my youth, when there'd be a debate, an informal debate, maybe, in a community, a group of people within a front room of a family home. And there would be a debate about the other people. And a girlfriend, a woman, a mother would say, there's good and bad in all sorts. And we would be could be debating racism. We could be debating another ethnicity, another cultural group. We could be debating foreigners. But, today we're talking about the unified hatred of Americans and whether it's righteous or not to hate all Americans. And I think it is righteous to hate all Americans. I think, what's wrong with collective punishment? I renounced my Britishness just not long after the 9/11. I was not unhorrified by watching the aeroplanes go into 9/11, into the towers. I was in Amsterdam at the time. Our company that I was working for had just declared bankruptcy. We were an internet startup company that was a European arm of an American internet company. And eventually the American arm had said it was no longer financing the European wing of the company. We were never going to go bankrupt because we were underpinned by China.com, of all things. But of course, all companies have their underpinning backers pull back when the end comes to the end. Anyway, we'd taken all the staff down to the unemployment bureau to register us all for unemployment, because in Amsterdam it had an amazing unemployment benefit system where you would get a large percentage of your salary for the next 3 months. So it was a good situation. We were, many of us Brits and Europeans from around the continent, and UK was still in Europe at that time, so we were up for a good proportion of our salary for a few months. So we took all the staff down. The officers of the company filed properly for bankruptcy and the likes. And we got back to the office, and that's when we started watching in the European afternoon, the events unfold in Europe. And for me, I was instant, right, well, that's America going to war, and it's going to go against war against Islam. I had already sensed that because of the Berlin Wall had come down, that America was going to need a new enemy, and that it was going to be the Middle East and Islam. And then later on, there was Tony Blair sided with Bush on this fiasco of weapons of mass destruction, and they decided that it was time to go back to war against Saddam Hussein. Not that there was any proof, and it was proven later on by the British military intelligence that 9/11 had nothing to do with Iraq. It was just a false flag operation by the Americans. So when you think that that's the only time that the NATO's clause that an injury against one is an injury for all, the only time that NATO clause that an injury against one is an injury against all, and that everybody has to go to war, was for a false flag action by America. If we think of the collective punishment that Israel has done against the Palestinians and how America has been complicit in that genocide that is still being worked through in the Dutch courts at the Hague for the Courts of Criminal Justice, then yes, I think there is a reason to suggest that what MAGA, who are obviously complicit with Donald Trump, that whilst the Americans have got their own war to fight, and maybe many of us should just sit back and let the Americans fight their own war, that what is happening now, the betrayal of Ukraine, the complicity of Donald Trump with Putin, could we say that it is all Americans are to blame? Well, two reasons. One is complicity. So yes, I think the Democrats were certainly complicit in the funding of the Israeli war and the genocide there. And also all Americans have supped from the same straw of the milkshake, sucking capital from the rest of the world. So, yeah, I don't think we should differentiate. Yes, there might be some nice Americans. There's some Americans claiming to be part of some resistance. But no, I think all Americans should be held to account for what is now seen to be a global betrayal of the rules-based order around the world that Donald Trump and the Republican MAGA crowd are unleashing. And therefore, I think it's justified to turn our back on every American wherever we see them. I don't think we should throw stones at Americans in the streets of our cities. We have to acknowledge that all our politicians have to curtail, have to play friendly, that we are still intertwined with American security, with American economics, but there will be an unwinding of whatever has been the relationship, and it will take time to make that unwinding. But as far as hatred is concerned, well, it's unhealthy to hate. And I have to admit, I've been watching too much YouTube, too much news items, top of the hour, going to the news, turning away from YouTube to look at what the hell is happening now. And it's put hate in my heart. And that is unhealthy. So we must drop the hate. Hold all Americans to account. Turn our back upon them. But drop hate from our hearts. Because we'll only bring that hate to our families, to our workplaces, to our friends. There are other ways to respond. So turn away from the Americans, but turn love into your heart, to your friends, to your own people, working class people. Don't hate all rich people, maybe, but certainly make arrangements for your friends, your family, your communities. Look to your politicians to bring about socialization of medical health, for investments in infrastructure, so that when families do have problems, they don't have to sell off any assets they have to get by. That loan sharks, money lenders don't become the problems. That when they could borrow for housing, for cars if they need it, but really there should be the rental economy should be there so that our provisions for healthcare, education, for affordable food should be there. Turn to love to your community. Turn to love to those from others who are not in your immediate community. If you are Christian, be aware of non-Christian communities. I was adopted by a loving family, a wife and her 3 children who have now grown up and who provide for me. I live in a different continent than the one that I grew up. In the UK, they failed to succeed with multiculturalism, and that was a big disappointment to me. I now live in a multicultural society. Singapore, the country that originated multiculturalism, where Malays, Chinese, Indians, and a sprinkling of Caucasians live side by side without prejudice or bigotry. One nation, one people, one with people of multiple languages, multiple faith, multiple religions and creeds, all get by without any compromise on healthcare, schooling, education, access to work or to housing. We have an amazing housing scheme in Singapore where there's massive housing production and building, apartments, lovely apartments of where you get to buy the 100-year lease. And because we have a central provident fund where every paycheck, something like 12 or 15 or 20%, depending on your income, is taken out of your income, goes into your central provident fund and is matched by your employee, and the government tops it up. You're able to pay for your housing out of your central provident fund contributions. If you sell your house at any point, then the contributions that you didn't make out of cash to pay off your house, you can do it all out of your own central provident funds if there's enough of you in the family contributing, and the proceeds before the profits go back into your retirement providence fund, and you're safe. It is an amazing system, and with subsidized healthcare where the infrastructure is paid for by the government and you pay according to your needs. It's free if you need it, but otherwise it's from your central provident fund and from your own saving and from work-based insurance. It's all affordable. So when you do have a problem, you're covered. And social care, not charity, but the provisions that are made by socialized medicine, means that your privatized assets, your private assets, do not get stripped away from you for the capitalist class. Singapore has an amazing amount of billionaires and rich people, but it also has the working class living in gentle comfort. So, hate the Americans, but don't allow it to hate yourself. There should be collective punishment, and hopefully all those who've involved in all sorts of war crimes in due course will be punished. Don't push your governments to rock the boats. Don't rock your own boats in your own community. Stay friendly, stay safe, stay antiseptic. Goodbye. Take care.